Welcome into the Frogs Today pregame show. We are so excited to bring this to you from the Frogs Today studio here at Roxo Media. And boy, what a game TCU had against BYU last week. Looking ahead towards this week, it's K-State at K-State. Kickoff at 6 p.m. So we've got you covered with everything you need to know before then. Going to give you a rundown of what we're going to get into. Obviously, a recap of BYU. A little bit from our post-game show. Had so much to talk about with Nabi Obiezor and JP Richardson, Sonny Dykes, even a little bit of Kate Dykes, and as well, obviously, QB1 Josh Hoover. After that, going to go into State of the Frogs, a little clip from there. Sonny's always got something to say over there. And season in review, we're going to talk about what K-State's done so far this season, what TCU's done so far, a little bit of the history of the matchup. You know, we're going to get into it all. We've got your Tuesday pressers covered, and of course, your offensive and defensive keys, and we'll close it out with our stars of the game. So before we get into all of that, let's go ahead and take you to some BYU highlights.
Well, and he literally said, it's keeping me up at night. On third down, Slovis gets hit and intercepted. Ball coming back the other way, and that'll be a TCU touchdown. Miller Bradford with the pick six. TCU, I thought TCU moved on the offensive line. No penalty flag. Now the throw across the middle. That one's caught. Another broken tackle. JP Richardson. And then this spectacular play. We were told Josh Hoover had a cannon. He put it on display there. And for Slovis and BYU. Pressured. Slovis goes down. Like they've left some points out there. They're up 17-0. They get the ball back and a handoff. Bailey right side run. Big game. Bailey breaking tackles into BYU territory. Really need to. Low snap. Slovis hit. Ball's out. Ball's loose. TCU's going to scoop it up. Bell app to learn more. First down play, and the ball thrown by Hoover right side. The catch and run for a TCU first down. But the red zone struggles have continued again today. Hoover throws across the middle, and it's caught inside the 10. It'll be first and goal. It'll be goal from outside the 5. Hoover looking middle, caught right at the goal line. Touchdown! Good effort by Jared Wiley. TCU. Hoover handed it off to Jordan's brother, Amani Bailey, dancing around and get against the BYU defense. Shotgun snap. Hoover throws. Caught. Touchdown. For his wide receiver to make a play. 21 yards. Now they snap the ball quickly. He looks back middle. Touchdown. I don't know. TCU.
Still present till this day.
Yeah, they do talk about him and the tone he set. Nice pass by Hoover downfield and the catch by try coming up 47 yards. Kick on the way, and that one is good.
Yeah, I think the guys around us played really well. I mean, we threw it 60 times, and I had no pressure, you know. So the offensive line played their butt off, and I knew they would, knew they'd give me everything they had. And then the receivers, I mean, can't say enough about the way they made plays. And, backs did a great job of pass protecting and running the ball. So just a great team effort.
You know what? He's amazing. I mean, I think he really took the role of being a backup. He appreciated being a backup. He took the job just as serious as a backup as he did a starter. So I'm just so proud of him. It's a big role. Last week, obviously no one wants to see Chandler get hurt. And so he kind of came into the game, stepped up, started this game strong. So really proud of him. He's a great kid.
I mean, nothing changed. They said I was starting this week, but I didn't prepare any different, So it just gave me the confidence that, hey, I've prepared and I know what I'm doing, and the guys around me know what I'm doing, know what they're doing. And so it just gives you confidence to go out and play and have fun.
Yeah, for sure. Josh, he did a lot of things well. He prepared at a high level all week long, and, all the guys had utmost confidence in him, and he came out, and I think he proved a lot of people, showed a lot of people what he could do, and I think he, even might have showed himself what he can do to an extent. So, his confidence is just going to keep growing, and the sky's the limit for that kid.
TCU with a 44-11 win over BYU. What a win for those guys. Definitely needed it. I think that was talked about a ton, which we'll get into with that presser. You'll hear it from Sonny later, but TCU needed just a solid win, and especially with a new quarterback coming in, which leads me to talking about that very special quarterback. I mean, come on. How could you not be on the Josh Hoover train after that whole performance? Josh Hoover, redshirt freshman, keep in mind, now stepping in as QB1 after Chandler got hurt last week. 37 out of 58 passes complete, a 63.7% completion rate, and 143 passer rating. That puts him at about top 50 of the entire NCAA college football, about the same level that Chandler Morris is at. So, you know, he's only got one game to go off of, and he's already in that top 50. That's something special about him. 439 passing yards. We did see him run, but not as much. He only had one rushing attempt, but it was for 26 yards. So take that as you will. If the boy wants to run, he'll book it. He'll boogie on down that field, but you know, it's not gonna be his first choice. And Jared Wiley got into that a little bit. We'll see that a little bit later as well. He's very much looking down the field, ready to make a pass. It's kind of his quarterback style. He had 465 total yards of offense. His longest pass, 42 yards, JP Richardson, touchdown. I mean, come on. What a duo we like to see. We talked about JP Richardson being a star of the game. We talked about how awesome it was just to get to talk to him at Players Club last week, to see him go out. We'll talk about his performance in a minute. I mean, come on. These guys played like a whole new TCU team, and that's exactly what we were expecting. Josh Hoover did throw 2 interceptions, but he wasn't sacked at all. You're going to get into the offensive line in a minute, but you know, he did pretty well, and under pressure, only 2% of the time. Wasn't able to complete a pass under pressure, but I think that's he's a redshirt freshman. I mean, I think that's what I would expect from a guy of his age. Everybody's been talking about how advanced he is, but let's also keep in mind, he is a redshirt freshman. I mean, he's a true sophomore here, grade-wise, but a redshirt freshman who really hasn't had much in-game experience. However, I'll talk about it a little bit later. We have seen him throw an interception every time he's been in the game, so hoping to maybe get that turned around this week. And then, of course, because TCU was up so big, Grant Tisdale, a senior, backup QB right now. So I guess QB2 right now with Chandler out of commission. He was able to get in, throw a pass for 8 yards, 1 for 1 on completion. So 100% completion rate for Grant Tisdale. And going into that offensive line, a lot of protection. I mean, that was impressive from them.
Absolutely. And Sonny did go into this game saying that this was going to be their best performance out of the whole season. And I can definitely say that it was. Going on to that offensive line, they only allowed 1 tackle for loss, no sacks allowed, and they had 2 QB hurries, and they only allowed pressure 2.3% of the time. So that offense definitely stepped up their game. There have been a couple past games where the offense really wasn't at their best performance, but they definitely stepped up, and good because Josh Hoover really needed that extra protection, and it allowed him to have a great game.
Absolutely. Brandon Coleman talked about that. They knew for a fact that if any week they were going to not allow a quarterback to be pressured or get sacked, is going to be this week. So that was really exciting to see that play out. Hopefully that energy can kind of carry over because he's got 1 game under his belt, but let's get him through 2. Let's get him through 2.
He still doesn't have that experience, so he still needs that protection, absolutely.
Absolutely. Going into those wide receivers, once again, this is the most for any game this season. 13 guys involved across the board. And, you know, I think we've been talking about, is this something TCU's trying to do? Is this something, because normally it doesn't ordinarily work like that. You know, you want to limit your guys to kind of especially in practice, know who you're targeting the most, right plays for those guys.
Yeah.
But I think TCU's got it figured out. Josh Hoover especially is really great at dispersing the ball just horizontally and vertically across the field. So I think getting those 13 guys involved has been really beneficial. And I mean, come on, 439 passing yards. Looks like it worked out for the kids.
Absolutely.
Going into those individual wide receivers, JP Richardson had himself a game, 6 catches for 104 yards, 1 touchdown, 42-yarder, we already talked about that, his longest, and it was his touchdown pass. Really kind of just looked like a bully on the field. I think it was one of the best games we've seen from him so far this season. And Savion Williams, so nice to see that receiver get involved. You know, I think we've been lacking a lot of him this season, and we've talked about how much the guys love Savion, how much they look up to him. He is a senior. He has this in-game experience. So he went 6 for 77, 1 touchdown, his longest 16. I think the longest is kind of showing us Josh Hoover's not afraid to air it out.
No, that's his thing, and we talked about that going into last week, that he definitely will be airing it out. So it really was a great time for him to step up and show us what he can do. And obviously, with our receivers, their stats, he showed up and showed us what he could do.
Absolutely. The stats reflect exactly what we saw from the game. Jared Wiley, 4 for 20, 1 touchdown, and Jalen Robinson, or Jay Flash, like we lovingly know him.
Yes.
7 for 68. He did have the most targets out of all the wide receivers, probably showing us that they do have a really good special connection right there. So that's nice to see that he does have those guys. He's kind of thinking in the back of his head, you know, even if a ball gets dropped, which, as Sonny said, with 58 passes, you're going to drop a couple balls. Yeah. It's okay. But, you know, it's kind of nice to see just that he's got those guys. He's got his guys in his head. And, you know, he knows if he airs it out, it's going to be game.
Yeah, exactly.
The running backs.
There were 27 total rushing attempts for 138 yards. 1 lost yard for Amani Bailey.
Really good.
Which was always, once again, the team's rushing leader. He had 13 carries for 62 yards, which actually isn't as much as we've seen from him in the past.
Not.
But Sonny did mention that they were trying to keep him on the down low a little bit so he could go into this next week feeling good, feeling refreshed. And he did. On Sunday, Sonny mentioned that Amani has felt the best that he ever has. So I think it was good for him to have a little bit of a break, even though he still showed up in that game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the offense has just been so heavily reliant on that run game. So to see him play all of these games and not be injured, and I think Sonny mentioned that a couple weeks ago, and just how healthy he has been able to stay is so impressive.
And still get 44.
Yes.
That says a lot about the team and how that offense performs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to Amani Bailey, his longest attempt was 25 yards with a 4.7 average. Cam Cook, he had 4 carries for 27 yards, that longest one being 16 yards. And Trey Sanders with 3 carries for 9 yards. So we definitely had some new faces showing up. But once again, Amani did show up, and we had some other guys showing up as well.
Even some wide receivers getting those touches as traditional running backs, you know, on those plays of offense. So that's exciting to see as well. TCU just kind of throwing everything out there, you know, letting K-State, putting them on notice that TCU's got some tricks up their sleeve. Going into the defense, what a game those guys had. You hold any team to 11 points, let alone a conference foe. That speaks for itself, and it shows in the stats. Shad Banks, 7 total tackles. He was the team leader in total tackles, 6 solo tackles, also the team leader there. And Nambio Biezor, 3 assisted tackles. He's the team leader there for assisted tackles. And Shad Banks, that's 7 total we just talked about. Nambio Biezor, 6 total. Mark Perry, 4 total. Those are your 3 tackling total leaders, and 5 players with tackles for loss. That's impressive because as we talked about with this offense, only 1 tackle for loss was allowed. We have 5, and it's not just 5 tackles. That's 5 different players. To see 5 different players get involved like that is so impressive. It just speaks to offense dispersing the ball and the defense also dispersing kind of the weight of everything. That's how you take a team to the next level, by making sure everybody has a role to play. Everybody wants to be there. 5 players with tackle for loss. Nambio Biezor, it was a sack, actually lost 13 yards on that play. A huge play for that kid. And what a great player he is, just talking to him, especially after all the games. I mean, he's got the heart for a football player. Jamie Hodge, Shad Banks, Caleb Fox, and Avery Helm, all also with tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. That Nambio Biezor sack, Jamie Hodge, and Avery Helm. There was also the big defensive play of the game. First touchdown of the game, goes to the defense. An interception by Nook Bradford for 35 yards, runs it back. 4 pass breakups and 5 quarterback hurries as well for the defense. So, I mean, if we're looking at these stats, I would say it was defense won the game. But then you look at the offense and you're like, offense won the game. It was even. This was just a good football game by
Both
TCU.
Stepped up and they really showed out.
Absolutely. I think the best game TCU has played this season.
Just like Sonny predicted. So
absolutely. You love to see it. And going into what Sonny's been talking about, we've mentioned him a ton. Why not show you what he said? When we come back, we're going to be talking and breaking down a little bit of what he said. So let's go ahead and take a look at Sonny's Tuesday press conference.
You know, it's like anything else. Every quarterback brings a little something different. And I think right now, you know, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of confidence in Josh and his ability to go out and do it. Now, it's going to be hard to replicate what he did on Saturday, but that's the goal. You know, Max Duggan was not a very good practice player, quite frankly. You know what I mean? I mean, you would come watch practice and, you know, you would just go, ooh, man, you know, and then all of a sudden he gets into a game and his game is elevated. And some guys just have an ability to do that. And you know, Max got a little bit better, but there were still times that, you know, it just didn't look great in practice, and then you got him in the game. And most guys, it's the other way. Most guys look really, really good in practice and don't play as well in the game. And I think in some ways, you know, Josh looked like he did in practice. And you just don't know how somebody's going to respond until you see it. We've just been up and down offensively. You know, when we look good, we look really good. When we look bad, we look worse than really bad. You know what I mean? And so, you know, but I think that's hopefully you're going to have some. I mean, when you throw it 59 times, you're going to have a couple. I don't know. You know, it's like Jack Besh. We got exactly what we wanted. We wanted Jack on a linebacker or a safety. We got him on a safety. I've never seen Jack drop a pass, ever. I mean, I'm talking in practice. I'm talking he catches balls every day off the jugs machine. I mean, I've literally never seen him drop a pass. And, you know, we dropped one at the 2-yard line, you know, that would have got a first down and probably would have led to a touchdown. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's you know, you can't catch him any better than he did. You just got to do it in the game. And you know, the great thing about Jack is, I mean, it'd probably be the only one we ever see him drop. I'm hoping. Started off bad, and I think we've improved pretty much every week. I thought last week was our best performance. You know, just because BYU does put a lot of pressure on you throwing the ball, and you know, they had been very efficient throwing it. But yeah, I really like what I'm seeing. I mean, same thing. I mean, we're just getting consistent play from guys. You know, we've got to. I know this will be a bigger test. You know, I mean, BYU kind of struggled to run the ball against us, and really have all year. We're going to have to stop the run against Kansas State. I mean, that's going to be, you know, it's going to be what they try to do, is open the game, establish the run, and we're going to have to, you know, be really physical and sound. And
lots to talk about with that Tuesday presser. We've got a couple of quotes lined out for you that we just really spoke out to us, honestly. First of all, just going off of it, talking about Josh and his confidence and his ability to just go out and do it, like he says. He did mention it's going to be hard to replicate what he did in that game versus BYU. I mean, let's be honest, he has set these standards. I don't want to say unreasonably high, because let's face it, it was his first performance and he went out and did that. Mm-hmm. However, they are exceedingly high. I won't say he can't replicate it again, but now there is an expectation that he comes out, and I mean, he has a Tua Tagovailoa, Patrick Mahomes game every single weekend. And I mean, you know, it works for those guys. So yeah. I'm not going to say that Josh Hoover won't be the guy that can do it, because there's always that one guy that everybody hates because he can always just go out and get it done, you know, but I think it's going to be a hard feat.
Well, Sonny also did mention in that press conference that Josh is one of those guys who performs the same way in a game setting as he does at practice.
Yes.
So that says a lot about him. Like Max Duggan, he felt though he didn't show up as much as in practice as he did in that game setting. So it does speak a lot about Josh, though, that he can show up in practice like he does in a game. So like you said, it could be those
Absolutely.
unrealistic expectations, but that is what we are literally just going to see from Hoover from now on out.
He's unrealistically athletic. He is unrealistically talented. There's
He's
no
just
predicting
that-
him.
he could just be
He
that
is
good.
just that guy,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
And Sonny also, I think, has come into a little bit of fire underneath. How are you going to allow guys to not win the quarterback battle in fall camp 2 years in a row, who then they come and they just rally this team and they lead this team and they run that offense. Max Duggan is who I'm referring to, as well as Josh Hoover, from what we saw as a redshirt freshman. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That performance was unreal. I couldn't imagine Max performing like that. And we know how good Max Duggan became. Couldn't imagine Max performing like that as a redshirt freshman. So I think it kind of was his way of answering that I go off of what I see in practice, because you should be practicing how you play. And he preaches that. He says, you practice how you want to play in this game, and that's how I'm determining who's playing.
Yeah, and we have talked in the past couple of weeks that Josh has also been preparing as if he already was that
As if
starting
he was the
quarterback.
starter.
So it's not only that practice performance, but it is that QB1 mindset.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what he showed us.
Absolutely. And he talked about those intangibles. Everybody has mentioned them. I mean, you'll hear it from both the O guys, the defensive guy that we've got coming on to talk about this later from the Tuesday presser. You just heard it from Sonny. We heard it all last week. We heard it post-game. Everybody has something nice to say about this guy. And of course, Josh told us that he does pay people to say nice things about him, but just adds to the fact that Buddy's got a sense of humor as well. He's very humble and he's very modest. That's the kind of guy you want leading your offense.
Yeah, and he does have that like relationship with these players,
Absolutely.
not only in game but off of the field. You know, he's telling guys to, okay, I'm going to be watching film at this time and this time. Come and meet me and we'll go over some
Figure it
things.
out.
We'll figure it out. Exactly. And that's what some of the tight ends were talking about, like Jared Wiley this past Tuesday. So it is like that super strong relationship, and I feel like they have a really good dynamic right now.
Absolutely. It's really exciting to see. And going into that, he talked a ton about offense inconsistency, and not just offense, but defense as well, but he really focused in on the offense. He said when they look good, they look good. But when they look bad, they look worse than bad. And I think that is very true for TCU. I mean, we saw that Iowa State game was nothing that, that's a game TCU would want to get back. The first game against Colorado, defensively, that's a game TCU would like to get back. Obviously, you have to take it week by week and keep looking ahead. You can't dwell on the past. And they showed us why with BYU being able to come out like that. But I think Josh is going to be able to probably combat some of those inconsistencies. You have a guy that you know, all right, every week he's going to come out and he's going to throw for 400, 500 plus yards.
Yeah.
I better show up as well. It just elevates the whole team.
And we did see that with stats this last week with our receivers. They showed up and he had that consistency with those receivers. There were 13 receivers involved, but those receivers that were involved were consistent, and that's a part of Josh Hoover's, his actions and his capabilities.
Absolutely. And going along with those inconsistencies, probably my favorite quote from the entire presser. I need to read it to you verbatim to understand the full extent. I'm not sure if you caught it the first time. This is talking about Jack Besh. He says, I've never seen Jack drop a pass ever. I mean, I've literally never seen him drop a pass. It's not funny. It's not funny. But it is funny just hearing Sonny and hearing that coming from a coach as a player. You sit there and you say, my coach just told the entire world that I literally never drop passes.
Yeah.
That is such a compliment. Like, that is Josh Hoover level of telling you that you got recruited because of your work ethic. That is that is one of the biggest compliments I've heard. And I think that really kind of combated some of the talk about like, oh, TCU's dropping a ton of passes. Well
they
when
are.
you throw 58, one's gonna drop.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was awesome to hear that.
And that does speak back to that consistency, that level of consistency.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen what Jack can do, and he's not one to drop passes.
No.
It's not a team to drop those passes,
Absolutely.
and that does speak to that level of consistency. But I don't think he's going to be that guy to make mistakes. And for Sonny to say that does speak a lot of volume.
It speaks a ton about also how he practices, you know?
Yeah.
So awesome to see that. And going over to the defense, we did throw in one quote there, not neglecting the defense. There is just so much to talk about with this offense, with the new quarterback coming in and all of the things. He said last week was their best defensive performance so far this season, but K-State is going to be even bigger test. K-State is a great football team. K-State consistently beats up TCU.
Yeah.
K-State is a hard place to play. I've been to that stadium. It's loud. There's not much but cornfields around it. Everybody's at that game. It's going to be a loud one, but I think that the defense is going to be up for that challenge.
They are guys who know how to stick to what they know, and they're going to go on that field and they're going to show out. They're not going to let all these distractions distract them.
Absolutely. And when we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk about this season in review. We're going to give you a little bit of background on the rivalry between, I wouldn't say a rivalry, but just the conference matchups between TCU and K-State. I don't know, it might be a rivalry after that loss in the Big 12 championship last season. I surely have a disdain for them now. And then also just talking about what K-State has done so far this season. So stick with us.
You know, we wouldn't be able to do the things we were able to do this year without the Flying T Club. So we got to continue to get people involved. It's more important right now than it's ever been.
Flying T is special. It's the best thing that I've encountered in college. It allows us to be able to offset a lot of the costs that our scholarships aren't able to cover. If people like winning, invest in the Flying T Club and NIL.
It's almost a necessity now in the college football world. I mean, you got to kind of invest in the programs, and what you put in is what you get out.
Welcome back in as promised. Let's go ahead and get into that K-State season in review. Courtney, what is their record right now?
Overall, right now, their record is 4-2. Conference play, they are at 2-1. Important to mention that they are 3-0 at home right now. That is huge, especially going in this week.
Absolutely.
Playing them at home.
Absolutely. And they're a little bit lacking right now. They're a little hurt right now.
Yes.
Let's see what's going on there.
They had some injuries on defense, very important players. Will Lee, last game against OSU, who is their cornerback, he is out right now, as well as Asa Newsome. He is out for the season. And Daniel Green is also out for the season, who is a senior. So some very important players. They are losing on defense.
Absolutely, and their coach was just talking so much about how those guys are definitely missed, and I think we saw it especially in that Oklahoma State game, that loss that they had. Going into those losses, something I'd love to talk about, a K-State loss. Hopefully we can talk about another K-State loss after this week. Heartbreaker losses for them, essentially. Late field goal against their cross-state rival, Missouri, stunted a K-State comeback. 30-27. This rivalry picked back up last season with a KSU win after not playing since 2011. So this one stings. I mean, I remember watching this game with my dad. My dad's parents went to Missouri, so we were a little excited for that one. But that was rough, you know. I can't say I shed a tear. Oklahoma State 2 weeks ago. Oklahoma State won 29-21. Essentially, I can't say this lightly, they dominated Kansas State the entire game. Halftime, 20-7. I mean, come on, that is not how K-State normally plays either. I will say that. K-State is traditionally a very tough, physical team. So, you know, I think that was very out of character for K-State. I think both of these losses have been. And they also, as you mentioned, Asa Newsome, they lost him right before that Oklahoma State game. So a tough blow, really, just for that whole team, losing a guy that's super essential to your team. Going into TCU and K-State history. Well, TCU's got a 3-5 away record against K-State. Not looking too good, you know. They really do play well at home, like you would want most teams to. I think the rule is if you can just play good at home, then you'll get a little lucky on the road sometimes. So they definitely do play very well at home. TCU 5-7 since becoming Big 12 conference foes in 2012. So TCU not winning that one either right there. 3-game losing streak since 2019 before the regular season last season, won 38-28. However, we are technically on a 1-game losing streak because we did play them again, Big 12 championship in Dallas. That was a heartbreaker. Overtime, 31-28. Wow. That was a rough game to be at.
Hard to talk
The
about.
Bill Schneider Family Stadium is loud, essentially is what we're trying to say with this. Playing that team away is tough. Last season when we won in the regular season, played them at home. A little bit easier, a little bit harder for a team to come and have to be backed up by our student section, as we've heard from a lot of coaches before this season, West Virginia especially. So the last time they played at K-State Stadium was in 2021. Attendance almost 45,000 in a stadium that holds 50,000. Like I said, not much to do. Everybody's going to be at that game. It's going to be loud. So going into that TCU's record right now.
TCU record, they are 4-3 overall with a 2-2 conference play record. So it'll be a tough game, but in practice this week, they've also been preparing for those distractions and that loud noise in the background. You know, they've been turning up those speakers all week in practice. So hopefully
they're going to be ready.
We can be ready.
Yeah, and I think I kind of speak for both of us when I say I kind of almost want to put TCU's record at 1-0 right now, just because of how different that team played with Josh Hoover there. Like, I almost want to say, yes, but like, does this matter? Because that's not the same team that's going to be showing up, and I think that's the advantage TCU has.
Yeah.
It's not the same team. They've only got one game of film on TCU.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few now. So going into that, let's go ahead and send you over to those offensive pressers we got to hear this week. Jared Wiley and Brandon Coleman of the offense, tight end, and offensive line. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people saw it. I don't think he's as quick to really run the ball. He keeps his eyes downfield a lot whenever he gets pressured or he has to roll out or scramble a little bit. So, whenever I'm out on a route, just having that in the back of my head, just, Chandler's running, I need to go block right now. Or, Hoover's running, all right, still try to get open. We got a little bit of time to kind of work our route a little bit more. So, I mean, that's really been, probably one of the only things that I've had to really change about my game. I mean, it's impressive just the things that he's done. You look at him and he's still very young, age-wise and all that, but he's very mature for his age. And, we've had issues throughout the first probably 4 games that, receivers busting, tight end, whatever it was, we just weren't clicking on offense. And, last week, we get a text at probably 4 p.m. and Josh texted all the receivers and tight ends and running backs and said, "Hey, I'll be at the facilities at 6:15 whenever it was." And he was like, "If y'all have any questions or if y'all want to come up and watch whatever type of film y'all want to watch, I'll be here." I watch film every day with Andrew Coker and Brandon Coleman, and we're looking at the IDs and looking at the box and how they look up front. And he's in there just absorbing all the information he can right now. So, it's been really nice to see. Even though he's young and he's kind of new to this. He's got one start under his belt or whatever. It's been really nice to see just how well he's handled this and how mature he's been. We're gonna go do what we do. You can't throw the ball all over the field if you don't have a dangerous run game. And I think that helped us out last week against BYU. We've been running the ball great all year, and they knew that. So you have to play man a little bit more and load the box a little bit. So I'm a firm believer that if you can get your run game going, then that opens up the entirety of your offense.
It didn't even look like Josh was hurried much at all last week against BYU. How much emphasis did you guys have as an O-line to protect him?
Yeah, obviously that's something that we pride ourselves on last year. And obviously we had some struggles this year, but made it a point, with Hoover being there, we want to have him as comfortable as possible for his first game in there. To kind of relieve that stress to focus on getting the passes there, making the right reads. So glad we were able to help him out with that. He's big on preparation, man. The moment he was told he got that job, Chandler going down, he made sure everybody's in the film room, sat with the O-line, to make sure that our relationship was good, which made us more comfortable on the field, just looking out for his teammates.
A lot to talk about with both of these teams today. Both the teams in purple. Hopefully the right purple wins today. And we've got a couple of offensive keys for you to make sure that happens. We're going to start you out with the TCU offensive keys. Then we'll go ahead and get into K-State's. Courtney, take us away.
Jumping into those offensive keys to the game for TCU, going off with our QB1, Josh Hoover, it's going to be very important to limit those interceptions. Every game that he has played, he has thrown at least one interception. So, however, not every game that he plays will be perfect. There needs to be some sort of consistency, as we talked about earlier. One of those things for consistency is limiting those interceptions. He really will also have to trust those receivers as well. Going into the second key to the game are rushing. TCU has a very strong rush game with that number one rush leader, Amani Bailey. Last week, the receivers were also led by strength with J.P. Richardson and Savion Williams. Josh Hoover has a lot to work with going into this week with 13 receivers involved, as well as, like I just mentioned, Amani Bailey, rush leader. And then going into that third key to the game, they really have to combat isolation on man-to-man. So Kansas State is really good at targeting those really good players. Some of those players, J.P. Richardson and Amani Bailey. These are our top players receiving and rushing, so they are going to be targeted this week, and that's something that they're going to have to go into the game prepared for. There are 13 receivers involved and 13 attemptees from different running backs and wide receivers. So there is a lot of room to air out the ball and run the ball to different players.
Absolutely well said. And K-State, going over to those offensive keys, their head coach, Chris Kleinsman, has said that they just need to really get more involved with the punt return and the kick returns. He says there aren't normally too many opportunities for them to do that. They're normally getting kicked in the end zone, just like K-State isn't taking any chances and definitely going to kick those balls back for a touchback. So, he says he really just wants to get those guys involved. And I think he might have been alluding to that because of how good TCU has been traditionally with the punt return and the kick return. We're still trying to figure it out this week, I think. We saw Major Everhart step into that role last week, and we saw J.P. Richardson. So really, I think TCU is still trying to figure that out. But K-State also trying to figure it out. So that should make you feel a little bit better. Going into number one key, they want to establish the run game. TCU shut down the run from BYU. It's been their philosophy, BYU's, but they haven't been too efficient in it this season. Now, this is K-State's philosophy. Last season, they had Deuce Vaughn, who's now a Dallas Cowboys running back and playing, not just on the team, he's playing. So he really was a great running back for them. They had a very, very powerful run game, and they traditionally always have. That's the kind of guys and the kind of offense that they really pride themselves on putting out. Right now they have DJ Giddens. Trayshawn Ward was originally the running back, but he's injured and now has been very encouraging of DJ, their coach says, on the sidelines and just all around, kind of just wishing for him to succeed, which is something that's super exciting to see, even when a younger guy takes your spot, of course, due to injury. And versus UCF, he had 8 receptions for 86 yards. Yes, I said that right. Receptions as a running back, 8 for 86 yards and 30 attempts for 203 yards. A running back putting up over 290 yards in a game. That's insanity. That's definitely something that they're going to want to keep going against TCU. Also, second key, stay physical up front. It's another philosophy. Those are big Kansas boys. Those are big corn growing, loving, wheat guys, as my dad always says. These guys are not something that you want to mess with up front. Those are big boys. So they're really going to be protecting that quarterback, protecting that pocket, making holes for that running backs, and that's something they do very well. And number 3, they're having a little bit of a quarterback situation themselves. They want to really, I think, focus on one quarterback. You want to get one quarterback prepared all week, and their coach said it could be 60-40, it could be 50-50, it could be 90-10. as to what he's assuming that those two guys are going to be involved with in the game. As of right now, he's still holding the line that both guys will see the field. So TCU, on the contrast, is going to have to prepare for both quarterbacks, which is definitely going to be a little bit of a challenge to compare for two totally different styles of play. He says that Avery is a great runner, a good thrower, but just hasn't shown it in the game yet. That guy is a freshman, pretty similar to the Josh Hoover situation. He said he's impressed, but not surprised with his performance, with how calm he is. Head coach Chris Kleiman said he's tremendously gifted, and he just needed more repetition is why he didn't win the job in the first place. Kind of something that we're seeing coaches say all around. And going into Will, when he's healthy, he's a great runner. He's a senior. Most teams who have a double quarterback situation don't necessarily work out for them. You know, you need that one solid guy that the rest of your offense can depend on. So for them, I think they need to figure out who they really want to play and who's going to give them the best chance to win this week. Let's go ahead and get into what we're going to like to see from the defense this week. To kick us off, let's go see Jamie Hodge's Tuesday press conference.
Just everybody, everybody came ready to play and everybody doing their job and the whole defense flying to the ball. A couple of plays you saw, we'll shut off. Say they trying to run the ball to the right side, we'll shut that down. The running back will cut it back. But we had our backside players doing their job and then they'll tackle for a loss. So really the whole defense showed up. We played well together and everybody did their job. I say both of them can really run good. Will Howard, they use him too. He run the ball well. It's just the backup quarterback, he's a little faster, but it'll be a good test for us, and we'll be ready for it. Oh, it's great. They've been doing great things, especially you saw how Johnny been out for a couple of weeks from us, and Shad, man, he stepped up to the plate, and he been playing well. Every week he been showing up, he been making plays, and big plays for us. Oh, yeah, Marcel, too. You saw he came in, he made a bunch of plays, too, and then also, Marcel give us that pass rush ability, more speed, and a cover guy, too, so then we also, substitute people out, and then especially, if I need a breather or Shad need a breather or Namdi need a breather, we got depth at linebacker, so we'll be able to rotate and keep everybody fresh and be able to play fast.
What do you think Kansas State's best strength is?
I say they got a lot of weapons too, and then their O-line is very good. The O-line is a bunch of veterans on there. I think everybody returned, but the left tackle, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they got a great O-line. A very experienced quarterback. Will have a very experienced quarterback. Now also they play calling. They like to run maybe run a stretch this way and then the Q read going back the other way. So we just got to play disciplined football and everybody just got to do their job. It means a lot, especially how we feed off each other, because we can get a 3 and out and then get an offense the ball and then they'll go down and score. And then we can also do it again, so we can all get a good lead on people very fast and quick. So it helps us out a lot too. And also, too, sometimes we ain't perfect on defense. We may give up a touchdown, then we have the offense. I think they scored the second half, then our offense responded with another touchdown. So we evening it back up for us. So.
What did you see from Josh from the leadership standpoint?
I saw a lot from him, especially starting off at practice, breaking down the huddle, and then being a vocal leader and stuff, getting the offense together, getting the offense ready to go and ready to roll. And then especially during the game, I saw him dapping up the receivers, talking to the O-line, the running backs, making sure everybody was together and giving them great energy.
I think it was Namdi said after the game, he even came over and talked to the defense.
Yeah.
What was his message to y'all during the game?
Just keep doing what we're doing, keep playing, keep giving, basically what he's saying the whole time. It was really great to see him do that too, because mainly he'd be on the offensive side, basically show him that we care and stuff. He care about us.
As always, we go to the offense. Now we got to do the defense. Going into TCU's defensive keys of the game, they're going to want to start out. This is a bold one. I would say a bold take, a bold key. I guess it might not be a key, more like a little bit of a hopeful for TCU. Get a pick 6. I mean, how hard is it? You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm joking. Get a pick 6, though, I think is going to be the first key of the game. We talked to Nambi Obiezor post-game. I kind of asked him about just how getting that first touchdown of the game really set the defense up. And he said it got them so fired up. It got them ready. It set the tone for the defense for the entire game. I mean, it's one thing to get a score in the game, an interception, another to get a pick six, and it's a whole nother thing for that to be your team's first score of the game. So I think what they need to do is really set the tone with not only interceptions, but pick sixes, to be able to not just make points off of a turnover, but not even let your offense back on the field and force their offense to stay on out there. I think that's so impressive. Going into number 2, prepare for both quarterbacks. We've mentioned it a little bit, and Sonny Dykes talked about how they might have shocked Texas Tech, and it's kind of something we've seen before with the entire Colorado situation. Nobody had film on them. Nobody knew what to expect. Just like Texas Tech didn't have any film on their freshman quarterback. So, they didn't know what to prepare for, didn't even know it was happening. It gives TCU the advantage to prepare now after seeing them for one game, as it did Colorado's second game. Dykes thinks that they'll see both in the game. Avery Johnson is fast, and he has a very good run game. Will Howard, the senior, had a little bit of a minor injury against Missouri, so he's a little bit shaken up possibly. But, he really is trying to stick it out. But definitely being more of an encouraging senior presence for Avery Johnson than a competitor right there. Both QBs are enthusiastic on the sideline for each other. And at the end of the day, their coach said they kind of have the mentality of they just want K-State to win no matter who gets the job done. Going into number 3, they're going to want to cover vertically and horizontally. We've talked about it. These guys can run and these guys can throw. So they're going to want to be able to cover it on all sides of the ball, be able to cover it on all cylinders, be able to really just stop the offense altogether. If they can do what they did with BYU last week, they can do it at K-State against a good K-State team. I mean, this game is in for trouble.
Moving over to K-State's defensive keys to the game, that first one being their younger defense. They do have some new players starting out, specifically some new linebackers due to 3 very important injuries on that defense. And according to head coach Chris Kleiman, it's just not clicking quite yet. This is something they will definitely have to work on this week, and definitely working together and making that successful. That second one being stopping that explosive offense. For TCU, we really have a lot of players on that receivers and the running ends, specifically JP Richardson with a 42-yard touchdown last game, as well as rushing leader Amani Bailey, who always steps up every single game. We also have new quarterback Josh Hoover with 1 rushing attempt last game for 26 yards. And according to Jared Wiley, there is a lot of wide receiver dispersion, and they'll have to keep their eyes down the field. That third key to the game is that they both have a 3-3-5 defense. There are a lot of similarities on defense, and that is something that is going to be a complete key to the game for K-State, is looking at those similarities and focusing on that. They match up very well, and it's going to make it a very competitive game this weekend.
Absolutely. We are in for a special one down there, up there, I suppose. It's up, it's north, in Manhattan, Kansas against K-State. TCU, as we mentioned, kickoff at 6 p.m. But before we close out the show, we're going to go ahead and take you to a little preview of our Players Club this week. We got to sit down with 2 more football players, and when we come back, we're going to give you our stars of the game and close it out.
Simply the best barbecue in Fort Worth. Dine in, catering, or drive-through. 2900 Montgomery, just off I-30. Remember, the best barbecue in Fort Worth is at Railhead Smokehouse.
Such a fun time talking with those guys. Always great to have football players on the desk with us, especially during football season. Great to get their insight into what their day-to-day life is and have a little fun while we're at it. Going into our stars of the game, I'll start us out. I'm going to go with Nambio Biazor. Not only did this guy have 6 total tackles last week, does he show up every single week to play, but he also has a brother on K-State's team. Now, I don't know how much you know about sibling rivalries, But I can tell you for sure, Nambi Obiezor is going to be a menace on that defense this week. I know exactly how he's going to play, and he's going to play like he's playing one-on-one with his brother in their backyard.
I'm going to take it today with Josh Hoover, of course. He obviously had an amazing career start last weekend. And as we talked about, I think that is going to continue because he has just been a great player all around with 439 passing yards on his first career start. I think that's only going to continue. He's been great learning how to run the ball, when to throw the ball. And I think he's just going to show up once again.
Absolutely. Goal stars for the entire team last week. We're excited to see what TCU does tonight against K-State. Kickoff at 6 p.m. Thanks for joining us for everything you need to know about the game before we get to the game. And as always, everything else, head on over to frogstoday.com to check it out. State of the Frogs with Sonny Dykes, Players Club, and of course, Frogs Today. With that being said, from everybody here at Frogs Today, I'm Maggie Hale.
I'm Courtney Stockhouse.
Go Frogs!